thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, to Dawn and the whole team. Drew, it's amazing to be here. A couple of times I've been here before, but I think you're bringing all these connections together in a way that is extraordinarily powerful, and following Brenda and Gemma, I think, couldn't have been better positioned. It's almost like it was a strategy. So hopefully what I'm going to do is answer a little bit of the question that Gemma asked about how do we get the politicians interested? At the end of the day, it's the economic side. It's the job side. When they begin to understand what this means, and I love the natural capital aspect of what you were talking about, I was invited to be part of a Conservation International event in Scottsdale that was all about the natural capital side of this. And what I like to tell people is it's my companies, and by that I mean the blue tech companies around the world, that are allowing us to gather the information that you all are crunching and figure out where it is. And when we find the problem, it's going to be blue tech companies that, again, are the ones that are going to have to solve it. So we are part of a circle of life, if you will, of figuring out what we've done and what we're going to do. So when you think about what a cluster should do, and I'm going to talk about this, but I want to talk first about what is that blue economy? How big is that blue economy? Because at the end of the day, it's about data again. And then what do we need to do? So, what's the value of a reef? Okay, that's important, but what's the value of a sunken vessel that has bunker fuel that's right near that? And if we don't go down and take care of that, it could destroy tourism in a country. So there are aspects to this where the technology exists today, which didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. And it's the perfect time because we have the ability to put layers in. Now, you want to scare people. We believe in ocean optimism. But every problem is an opportunity. And so what I'd like to do is kind of run you through how we see the blue economy. So first of all, it's the importance of data and location to really understand and promote a sustainable blue economy. So in 2016, the OECD, the think tank of the democracy of the world, did its first ever study. And they said that very conservatively, because they don't pick up anything that I do, they don't pick up the blue tech portion of the blue economy. They said in 2010, it was a $1.5 trillion industry, growing to $3 trillion by 2030. Big numbers, fast growth. You compare that to the lower left-hand corner, and you see the worldwide water industry, which we all know is incredibly important, water, wastewater, was $500 billion. So it's 3 times the size of the water wastewater industry and 4 times the size of the space industry. And yet there are dozens of investor groups that focus on space. There are a dozen probably that focus on water. And there's not one in the United States that focuses on the ocean. It's got to change. We're working hard on that. So is the European Union and others. But that's the OECD's take on this. But what's so amazing is how recent this all is. So in 2012, we did our first study, and I will talk about that in a minute. I told you that 2016 was the first ever study by the OECD. We were a co-author on the first ever study by NOAA on what's the value of ocean observation. NOAA had looked at that for the weather, but they'd never looked at that for oceans. The first ever UN Ocean Conference was 2017. The Kenya Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, 2018. The EU did its first Blue Invest Day in 2017 as well. The EU did its first ever Blue Economy study in 2018. Just did the second one in 2019. The Blue Invest in the Mediterranean was done in 2019. And about 2 years ago, I proposed to the National Academy of Sciences that they do an event on the oceans. And the word that came back was that the leadership team at the GWIR, the Government University Industry Research Roundtable, that the time wasn't right. And about 2 months ago, I got a call and said, time's right, come. And my mission was to talk to them about the value of the ocean and why should the National Academy of Sciences be interested in the ocean. Well, the good news is they've decided to do that. So in February of 2020, the National Academy of Sciences is going to have its first ever event on the ocean. That's amazing. Okay, 2019 into 2020. Why is it that when 71% of the world's surface is water, 66% is ocean, 90+% of all goods go by ocean. 93% of all the heat is being absorbed in the ocean. 97% of the world's water is in the ocean. And 98 to 99% of habitable Earth is underwater. Why is it in the last 3 years that all these amazing organizations are doing this work? Because we're really waking up to the value of the ocean. And again, I want to say to Esri, the work that you guys have been doing for a number of years, predating 2016, we've been partners in many ways, and I think we're now finding the synergy in a way perhaps we didn't even anticipate 4 and 5 years ago. But it's incredible to see what is happening. And so as Jim has said, there will be in 2020, the EU will be doing a second Blue Invest Day, and of course the Ocean Conference in Lisbon, which Kenya and Portugal are the hosts of. We did a side event in the 2017 conference in New York City, which Fiji and Sweden were co-chairs of, and we did an event with the Swedish cluster there on what is the value of clusters and the triple helix. So, okay, we've said that OECD said it was $1.5 trillion. UNCTAD says, the United Nations said it's somewhere between $3 and $6 trillion a year. Oh, wow, that's a big difference. And if you take its $3 trillion, it's the 5th largest economy in the world. And then NOAA did a study and said it's growing twice as fast as the US economy, this ocean economy, to the best they know. So we're talking about not knowing how big the economies are. We just know they're big. And we know they're growing. And so the work that Jim is doing and the work that others are doing, the OECD is doing, the Chief Economist's Office with Monica Grasso at NOAA and the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and even looking at this from a NAFTA point of view, the Caribbean is, the Inter-American Development Bank is looking to put together a blue economy cluster in the Caribbean. One of the first things they were looking for was data. Because you got to understand what assets do you have there. I'm not talking about natural capital. I'm talking about what university laboratories are there. What can we call on? What can we use? But you also have to understand the economic side of this, because that's what gets politicians interested. So this is another way to look at the potential. So you look on the far left, and you see all these island nations, and you see people like France, because they have the largest EEZ area in the world. You've got the Esri, the science of where, and this is an ability to understand why China looks at the South China Sea. Because you see on the far right, the biggest bubble to the far right for you, that brown means land. The blue means ocean, and they don't have a lot of it. Big country, little ocean. You go to the far left, that's where we ought to be putting U.S. aid, and where other countries, European Union aid should be going. This is where we have to understand the ocean, the natural capital, the potential. What was remote before will not be remote because of how fast technology is moving. And so the cures to breast cancer and many other things are likely to come from the ocean because we're just learning to live with the ocean. This is a slide that Drew was nice enough to give to me. This, I think, is amazing. I mean, what Esri has done, as opposed to just GIS people talking to GIS people, is you're allowing us, all of us, to pull this information together in incredibly meaningful ways, that we can use it with politicians, and as you said, Drew, we don't have to explain to them what the hell GIS is. They're going to have the data. They're going to be able to layer it, and so you can take them and say, look at all these reefs, and here are 25 vessels where we've got to go do something about because they're 60 years old, and when they were sunk, they were full of bunker fuel. And we have a catastrophic disaster on our hands for 1 or 2 islands if we don't deal with that. Well, somebody's going to pay for that. Okay, yeah. But somebody's got to do it. That's a job. Those are good-paying jobs. So we got to make sure that we look at these problems that we created unknowingly. We didn't, run the war so we could create problems for ourselves 50 years later. But we did, and now we've got to figure out how to deal with it. So we did our study in 2012 based on 2011 numbers. Now, the city of San Diego was built around a beautiful harbor. How many of you have been to San Diego? Great. You like it? Okay. Beautiful weather. We had to go find, there was no way to figure out, there's no SIC code, there's no NEX code, North American Industrial Classification, that gathers the ocean economy and the blue economy. So we're both ocean and water. We had to go find the companies and found they fit into 200 codes. It's a terrible way to go understand anything. And the OECD is working on this because we have to harmonize our codes. We found $14 billion of direct revenue. I'm not talking about induced and indirect, because that's when you get into total economic impact. $14 billion of direct revenue, 46,000 jobs. Now, in the lower right-hand corner, you can see that we found 6.7 times more than the US national numbers by doing a regional study and then looking at the national numbers. So again, this is a data issue here, and it's a regional issue here. So all around the world, we're finding that most people really don't know how big their blue economy is. So if there's an action call, of course, it is, please help us. Help us find the assets. Help us map things that, the problems that we can have a solution for, but also very basic things like even the economic activity. We did this in 2014, but we never released it because some people talk about this, the economic benefit. So you're seeing this, you're one of the third or fourth group I've shown this to, but this is the multiplier effect. And it's really small, I'm sure, although it's a really wonderful screen, I must say. The lower left-hand corner, we had a company give us $5,000, and we gave $5,000 to a local university and said, do a multiplier effect study. And the company also gave us their whole supply chain. And what they found was that 1.74 was the multiplier in the city of San Diego, which means that for every dollar they spent, there was $1.74 of impact, indirect and induced on top of the direct. 2.25 in the county of San Diego, 2.59 in the state of California. And they came back and said this is the highest multiplier they'd ever seen in any other industry. They've done a number of industry studies across the state of California, more than Qualcomm, more than healthcare. So you see on the right-hand side are some of the other industries. This is not to say they're not important, believe me. It's the last thing I would ever want to say. It's to say that an industry that people haven't even looked at has this amazing impact. So it's like opening up your cupboard and saying, my gosh, a cornucopia of, in my case, Snicker bars. If you're a person, but it's, if you're a politician, you go, my God, I had no idea about this blue economy. So it's so amazing. So this is an amazing opportunity. It's the time to be bold. And you see the Sustainable Development Goals down there, because everything we do, we believe should be focused on, of course, what's doing what's right. And at the very bottom of this list, this diverse industry sectors, it's fast growth, huge potential, high economic multiplier effect, global impact, we got to promote the SDGs, big problems or big opportunities, and it's the right thing to do. And to do any of these things, we need the data. My companies provide the tools, the robots, the sensors, and all that kind of stuff. Somebody gathers that, somebody's paid to go out and gather it, and then the data's there. And you guys are taking the data and doing stuff with it and figuring out where it is and making it visual for me. So I listened to that last panel, I'm going, man, I don't need to understand that because I'll never understand all that. That's not my role in life. But without that, we can't be as effective. So here are a couple, I was asked to talk about some of the things that I'm concerned about, or not concerned about, but what we should focus on. Again, this was the National Academy of Sciences. You can see the little seahorse there with that Q-tip, which is both cute and terrifying. But number one is the circular economy. Everything, in fact, I was talking with two ladies that Dawn introduced me to. They were saying, why aren't we using the brine water from a desal plant? And we're looking for technologies that can do that. Everything we throw away today, frankly, has to be used. So we have to be thinking about, and not just used. I mean, we take the fish, $20 cod, and you get the fish, and then you put the rest in, and you make fish meal. Okay, we used 100%. But that's not the highest value add. In Iceland and Norway, that's $1,200, $1,400. They're using the cod for the cod liver. They're using the outside skin to create, instead of alligator skin shoes, they're making fish skin shoes. They're using every piece of it in very high value ways, and we have to change our thinking. The cleaning up of the ocean. We dropped nuclear waste for 40 years. Bad guys don't have to go, break into a nuclear reactor today. They just need to go find that stuff because the technology exists to go harvest it, unfortunately. I mentioned this in Norway. I was at the Our Ocean conference a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned that, and they said, "Oh yeah, we've got this Russian nuclear submarine, and we're monitoring it because we get spikes periodically." Whoa, so there's all kinds. When the Germans abandoned Norway, they just threw all their mustard gas and all the weapons they had, and so stuff rolls up onto the beaches there. Not very good. In the Baltic, 10 to 12 people die every single year. I wonder how many people die from munitions coming up on shore in the South Pacific. I've never seen an article, but it may be because the populations are so small. They're so randomized that nobody's putting that together. But this is a big issue in the North Sea and the Baltic, and it's one that we've got to deal with, and we have the technology to deal with it today. Floating platforms. Every desal plant, every port is going to have to move. It's just a matter of time. So we've got to move out, because you won't know how far to move inland. You won't know 2 miles, 3 miles, halfway up the mountain range, in anticipation. The only way we can deal with this, when 90% of the world's goods go by water, is to create floating infrastructure. Somebody's got to figure out where to put that, right? Data, location. You guys are all critically important to that. Reducing ocean noise. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things coming out because we just didn't realize what we were doing. On my way up here, I was listening to a report on National Public Radio, and they were talking about human hearing. And the guy that was talking had lost a lot of his hearing, and he had a hearing aid, and he was talking about this cumulative nature. Well, it's no different from marine mammals, except we don't take them to the doctor every year or two. We've got to figure out, how do we reduce the sound of pile driving? I got a company that does that. Reduces by 90 to 95%, which means instead of 3 miles away damaging their hearing, you're damaging it 6 and 7 meters away. Unbelievable. The screws on the vessels, nobody really cared because we didn't realize what we were doing. Now we are realizing that whales don't sing or they change their tune when the vessels go by. So this whole area of noise pollution, I think, is really big. And then salt intrusion. Around the world, the Mekong Delta, Bangladesh, salt is intruding, and tens of millions of acres are being taken out of agriculture at the very time that the population is exploding. These are things we have to deal with. So again, one of the things I loved about this one is ArcGIS content is continuously improving, which we absolutely need. In the lower right, integrating community content shared by our users. It's growing and changing on a daily basis. Fabulous. That's why we need Esri and the work that you all are doing. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about a cluster. We are a cluster. So there is an economic definition of a cluster, which means a naturally occurring community of common interest. But when people say, my God, we've got the ability to put 20 or 40 or 80 companies together and really help them magnify. This is like having a single voice versus having a choir. Why do people join together? It's to be heard. Why do you have industry associations? So we are, if you will, a specialized industry association based around the topics of ocean and water. We believe that blue tech clusters worldwide, and that's why when Drew said we are promoting this, we really are. We believe that blue tech clusters are critical to get everybody rowing in the same direction, if I may use that analogy, and to focus on the triple bottom line, the people, planet, and profit. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. It's blue tech companies that are allowing us to find the problems. The plastic problem didn't start yesterday. It didn't start 5 years ago. It started 50 years ago. It may be more prominent today, but this is a problem that's been around a long time. But now we know that it's the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Now we know it's under the Arctic ice. We didn't know that before. It's technology that's allowing us to go find those things, and it's only technology that's going to be able to solve it. I was asked by the U.S. Navy, I was asked to be part of a leadership team to find disruptive technologies. And they said, find something that can go harvest plastic in the ocean, think of the Great Gyre, and turn it into fuel. So we don't have to bring stuff from the West Coast. Very, thinking in economic terms. Well, we found a company that can take plastic and use microwave technology to basically melt it at ultra low sulfur fuel at far below normal refinery costs. The Navy's quite interested in that, and other people are as well, on land and on the ocean. So we were founded in 2007. We're in our 13th year. We are a strategic partner with the U.S. Department of Commerce. We work with the OECD. We work with the European Union. We have a lot of international contacts. We're over 100 companies, mostly in the United States, but I think 10 or 12 of those are international. Our mission statement is to promote sustainable. In other words, if it's not conservation-oriented, we don't want to do it. Science-based, as opposed to my cooking, which is always one-off. If it's not science-based, we don't want to do it. It's got to be replicable. And then ocean and water industries. But at the end of the day, we are an industry association. So we're looking for innovative technology, so we promote blue tech and blue jobs. For us, blue tech is everything wet. And there are the big five. You know, we talk a lot about what I would consider very important transitory problems, which we will deal with. We will deal with plastics. We will deal with netting. We will deal with sunken vessels. You know, we've come a long way just understanding that we can in the last 5 to 10 years because the technology exists. It's really the food, the water, the energy, the medicine, the real estate for the long term. And all of those, the ocean's going to play an incredibly important role. And ocean observation is what allows us to do this in a sustainable way. And we have to change the math. So we're driving our companies to bring the price down, not to create autonomous vehicles that are, you know, $2 million because they can afford it, but to drive that price down resolutely. I'm not going to spend any time on this. We're really broad. 16 sectors and over 80 subsectors. So anything that's wet, including, you know, freshwater, wastewater, we're interested in it. When we did our study, people looked at San Diego and they realized that we were the largest industry, aside from defense, in San Diego. But until the study had been done, nobody knew that. These are some of our partners, just a section, but they're all around the world, and we hopefully will be doing more. This is the famous triple helix. Hopefully many of you have seen this. So essentially, there are 3 stakeholder groups we have to talk to. Now, there are more. There's investors, but an investor group would love to have a $1 billion business with 3 employees, so they don't really care about jobs quite the same way. But if you look at academia and education, they need to fund themselves, but they got to get jobs for the people. They want to figure out how to train people for the jobs. Policymakers, particularly elected officials, want to be reelected. That means having a good economy. That means jobs. And the blue industry. We need new entrepreneurs. We need the trained staff to grow. So where we intersect is jobs. So again, it's back at that blue economy. That's how you get everybody working in the same direction. So one of the things that we're proudest of, and of course I love the SDGs in so many different forms. This one about teaching the SDGs. Yesterday we're part of a leadership group for the San Diego Unified School District. So at the very bottom of this, there's 105,000 students in the San Diego Unified School District, the second largest school district, K through 12, in the state of California. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we were able to attract a woman who now is the head of innovation for the whole school district to come to our event. She came up and sat with a bunch of people, and she said, I have no idea, I'm here to learn, which is pretty gutsy to do. She subsequently has arranged for administrators and teachers to come. And 3 years ago, we launched a Blue Tech Academy, virtual academy, and Blue Tech Pathway with them. And in November, this past November, they got a $3.4 billion bond issue passed. And they now are going to roll Blue Tech across the whole 105,000 kids. And it's really amazing because every class, the teachers have gotten up, I've been there, and they've said, I knew every teacher, but we never had a reason to work together. But now we can start in kindergarten reading about the ocean or reading about water and the importance. Start the ocean and water literacy very early. By first grade, turns out 50% of high school kids in San Diego never been in the ocean. They'd never had their foot in the water. So every single child will be in the water in the first grade. Now, this isn't the curriculum, so I'm just telling you the stuff I care about. By second grade, every child's going to be in a boat. By third grade, every child's going to be working on ROVs. So our goal is to work with them to create the next generation of people that care about the ocean and water. About 7 years ago, the guys that branded Starbucks and Disney stores are friends of mine, and they made these posters for us, and every educator looks at them and goes, oh my God, I want these. The problem was there was no place to send young people to find out about the jobs in the ocean. It's really amazing when you think about it. Now, there are industries where you can go and there's something very specific about being a merchant mariner, and they do a wonderful job. But there is no place that looks across the whole blue economy and says, my God, there are millions and millions of jobs. And so we are just about ready to formally release these because we have a new logo, but more importantly is we're launching our new website, and we're pulling together lots of different things, including jobs so that hopefully the children that want to do it and their parents, who are the ones that pay for the education, will both realize that this is an industry with amazing numbers of jobs. So I'm getting right to the end, because I know I only got a few more minutes. We run a Blue Tech Week, and we are thrilled to have Esri as a multi-year partner, sponsor of some of our events. We found that when we're bringing people long distances, and this year we're expecting people from about 20 countries, including a number of new clusters that are developing. I hopefully have given you a sense of what we as a cluster are doing. So I have, I think, 7 existing clusters coming. We started the world's first Blue Tech Cluster Alliance with 10 of the leading Blue Tech clusters from 8 countries. Those countries are all, if you will, developed countries: Canada, France, Ireland, Norway, Portugal, Spain, UK, US. But we have coming Korea. They spent 3 days with us in May. They're launching a Blue Tech cluster. One of the prefectures from Japan came, spent a day with us. They were thinking of launching a very specific biomarine cluster. We opened their aperture, and they're now saying, we're coming. So they're bringing, I think, 4 or 5 people plus a translator. So I guess they got some really decision makers there. We've got I mentioned the Inter-American Development Bank is bringing people from several different countries because they're going to be launching a blue economy cluster. We found out recently people are coming from Kenya, from the Kenya Women's Chamber of Commerce. Originally one lady wrote, and she said, I'm bringing 2 of my partners, and so we're going great. And we're talking with the U.S. Embassy down there. Hopefully they'll make it. Last year we had about 550 people. This year we're expecting 700. We have the UN Global Compact will be represented, so hopefully a number of our companies will sign up with the US Global Compact, which was set up back in 2006 or 7. But when 15 came along, they really focused entirely on the SDGs and the global agenda. And so we are pushing very hard. Every company that presents is being asked, to have a slide on what SDGs they focus on. I would say that 1 out of 20 probably even knew what the SDGs were before we started talking to them. And that's really amazing, because if we don't get industry involved, I don't care what the political will is, we will not be able to accomplish the SDGs. So to us, it's a really big deal. You can see our theme for the year is the UN 2030 Agenda, Sustainable Development, Clusters, and the Triple Helix. Again, I want my children, I have my first grandchild. I want my children to have more children, so I have more grandchildren. But there are a lot of young people today that are nervous. They're worried about sea level rise. They're worried about what's happening to the climate. And I'm worried. But I believe that while I can't take on climate change all by ourselves, either us as a cluster or all the Blue Tech clusters, working together, which I think was what the SDGs and the agenda allow us to have a rallying cry, and the beautiful colors of the SDGs. I mean, they're so simple. We now have probably 1,000 children right now from San Diego Unified School District working on coasters. We're going to have a surfboard with our menu at our gala dinner. If you come to our gala dinner, I think Drew's going to be there, but hopefully you'll be with us. You know, we're getting children, so 1,000 children means that 1,000 parents, families are going to be hearing about SDGs. We have videos that kindergartners are making. Kindergartners. So this is an amazing effort, not just for our companies, but actually reaching out educationally so that we reach everybody. And that to us is important. We are blessed in San Diego. We have the largest Blue Tech cluster in the United States, maybe in the world. We have the largest Navy presence in the world. We have the largest oceanographic institution, Scripps Institution of Oceanography in San Diego. I didn't build any of that stuff. We're harnessing that. We're hopefully helping create collaboration, not always successfully, but I'd say more often than not. And we want very much to work anywhere in the world that people are talking about creating clusters. We think it's really important. We, of course, are very small. We don't have the money to do that, but we hopefully, the Inter-American Development Bank and the World Bank, people like that, will in fact get involved. So I've been to DG DevCo, which is the USAID equivalent at the European Union. I was at our ocean. I met with NORAD, which is the Norwegian aid agency, because we're trying to get them to focus on clusters and doing things in the ocean where traditionally they've worked on land. So there's so many ways that we all can work together. So my last slide, in the upper right-hand corner, you see Data Revolution for a Sustainable World, which came from Geospatial World. So you all are right there, sitting in the middle. Without you helping us understand, make sense of data, making it accessible, telling us where things are so that we know how to price it. You know, if I've got a service company, how do I know what it's going to cost me to go down and retrieve the oil from, I know I have the technology, but how do I know where it is? Who says that that's the first one to worry about because it was sunk earlier, or we've gone and looked at it and then it's leaking? I mean, we need all to be working together to address these. So from the UN website, you've already heard about the SDGs, but from the SCOP website, it says that this partnership they've started, and of course I've compressed it a little bit, but the Asia-Pacific SDGs partnership that will, over the next 15 years, produce high-quality knowledge products, support follow-up and review 2030 Agenda Sustainable Development Goals. Fabulous. We would like to work with you. The role of the blue tech clusters is to focus on the solutions. That's what my companies are doing. They're helping you have the technologies that allow us to gather the information and hopefully driving the price down so that the countries that didn't have the funding, you know, the Palaus with 20,000 people, all those SIDs that need support, we need to let people know that it's not going to break the bank to be able to do these things that need to be done. So they need to understand that technology exists. We need you to help us figure out where. We need to get the capital involved, both the natural capital, but actually the financial capital, so that we can really move to the decade of solutions. And we will be in Lisbon. We are very close with the Ministry of the Sea from Portugal, and we have a national cluster partner there. So we're already working with them. 2 weeks, we will have somebody from our national cluster partner in San Diego with us, and we'll be plotting what we will be doing in Lisbon. So thank you very much. I always like to use what Dawn, I was sitting here 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and everywhere I go, I use this as my last slide, and that is, if you want to go quickly, go alone. You may have used this yesterday, Dawn, I don't know. But if you want to go far, go together. And I use this everywhere because I truly believe that the only way we're going to be successful is in collaboration. And we need your data and your location technology. So that's our contact details. Drew is welcome to share this as a PDF with anybody that would like it. Thanks.